You are sitting alone in a movie theater that is empty. The movie starts when the lights go out. The outline of a human going through the desert can be seen in the distance. A strange start to a movie. Several thoughts race through your mind as the camera zooms in, and you can see this person more clearly. To walk around there must be really bad. The extreme thirst, the hot sand under your feet. You can't stand how hot the sun is on your face. Now you can see the main character's face. You can hear your own thoughts. There is a pause during which the achingly quiet Sahara is heard. Is it possible to be a good person here? The answer is yes. The next question is, do I have everything I need? Yes. This makes you a little confused, and you wonder what the movie's creators were trying to say. Being a good person in the desert doesn't make a difference. How can this person say they have everything on them? It's like having a conversation with the desert runner. You must find water in a city or a meadow, the protagonist asks. What should I focus on? Although you don't entirely agree with the protagonist, you have a lot of respect for this person on the side. You run your hand along your chin and try to figure out what's so interesting about this. With his eyes closed, the protagonist smiles. You touch your hair with your hand. That's not possible, is it? Are you smiling? What about a sunstroke? At that point, you see a memory. At the table for breakfast, a family. One is making jokes, and the other is busy with all kinds of daytime preparations. A scene from daily life. The picture fades away, and we see our protagonist once more taking a distance walk through the desert. I am going to do everything within my control, for myself and for you. Isn't that an amazing picture? In a situation that would give most people fears, this person found calm, direction, and happiness. How is that possible? Stoic theory says that a person doesn't need much to be happy or to live in eudaimonia, a condition of human development and prosperity. You will find calm in the chaos if you keep your mind on the right things, understand how the world works, and are aware of what you can control. The power to do well even when things are hard. A Stoic teacher says that the only thing that can hurt you is yourself. This may sound extreme to many. If you even for a moment think that they are right about this, I can only imagine how happy that makes you. What does this teach us that we can use in our own lives? Inside strength as a choice. People who follow the Stoic philosophy have said a lot of things about this. Like Marcus Aurelius, who said that the ability to determine your own thoughts is your greatest power. If you set your mind to something that you can control, Epictetus says that it will always happen the way you imagine it. Seneca also tells us that we can always make the best of bad situations, as long as you know what is good for you personally. Besides these statements, there are a lot of other pieces of advice that can help you find strength and direction. It would take too much time to list them all here, so I will now refer to Stoic literature so you can get an idea of the worldview and thoughts that the Stoics suggest for mental resilience. There is always something you can do to deal with life and be happy, in my opinion, which is the most important piece of wisdom. This is something I see in other philosophies as well as Stoicism. Even though it's not always clear at first look in other philosophies, you can do something, so do it, because it will only benefit you, according to a quote from Marcus Aurelius that best expresses the message. Not only that, but he also says, you'll have to do it yourself anyway. No one else can determine your state of mind, according to Stoic philosophy. Things must be handled by the person who wants to live a happy life. It doesn't matter if you find that easy or hard, or if it comes quickly or slowly. It's always worth it to do your best for it. Water jug analogy. According to the Stoic orator, all you need to get through life is the capacity to think rationally. Use it then. Marcus Aurelius said, "There is nothing that nature forces us to deal with that we cannot naturally handle." It is also advised to make sure that these logical thoughts are not interrupted by things like anger, impulses, or false expectations. Happiness starts in the mind, according to the Stoic. And despite comments about material things and how to treat others, I think we need to get back to the basics. If you can link happiness to your thoughts, then getting them in order must be important. Epictetus also does a great job of explaining this in his dichotomy of control. But I've thought of my own analogy, an analogy that can help you feel calmer and more in control of your life. Something that can help you feel like you know what to do. This is what I call the water jug analogy. Picture a glass water bottle sitting on a table in front of you. There are cups of different sizes all around this picture. The cups have labels such as work, hobbies, and self-study. The liquids in the cups are all a different color. For this analogy, imagine that when you deposit different liquids in your water jug, the colors do not mix, but they get their own layer in the water jug. The reason the cups are different sizes has to do with how much of a particular liquid you can find in the world. The cup labeled diversion is going to be huge, for example. To make the analogy clearer, we are going to look at the water jugs of two different people. Remember that the water jugs have a rim, so there is a limit to how much liquid will fit in them. The first water jug is one in which there are lots of different colors floating around. Now imagine that the person to whom this water jug belongs is standing looking at it with a sad expression. I would so like to have more time for personal development. Now when you look back at the water jug again, you see that there are lots of liquids in here with labels like Netflix, Tumblr, and Instagram. Now you notice after a quick calculation that if the distraction liquids were discharged from the water jug, there is just enough room for the personal development liquid. This person does not pay enough attention to the time we have per day, which, by the way, Seneca wrote a good book about, namely, On the Brevity of Life, and in which, by the way, Seneca explains that things like drinking alcohol and nowadays Netflix, for example, do not always have to be bad. The next person we see has a pitcher that can only hold 3 colors of liquid. They are sitting at the table and looking at the pitcher with determination, happiness, and a smile. Shall I tell you now that this person is the protagonist of the movie we saw earlier? The outside world, or other people, can pour liquids into our water jug, causing the philosophy we had chosen for ourselves to seep out over the rim of the water jug. This is a process that will never stop. The water jug is a metaphor for your brain, and since your brain is the organ by which you interpret your life, you could say that your brain is your life. What goes on in your head is how you see the world, how you make choices about what happens in your life and what direction you direct it yourself. Like the contents of a water jug, you can shape your own brain. That means you can shape your own life. Epictetus also says it. When will you finally choose to want only the best for yourself? Happiness can be seen as a choice. This makes me happy, so this is what I'm going to fill my life with. But your life and your daily energy supply have a limit, so you will have to think carefully about what exactly it is that makes you happy. And think especially carefully about whether something is simply pleasurable for you in the short term, or whether it makes you truly happy in the long term. Choose the essentials. That's minimalism for the brain. Fill your life not with chaos, but with clear personal values, interests, and goals. By the way, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to fill your life with. I'll leave that up to you to decide. However, I do advise you to grab the action side of the brain and have a conversation with yourself to find out exactly what it is that you want to fill your life with. Finally, I'd like to point out that in my experience, it's best to keep the number of liquids in your water jug to a minimum. Some things are now almost inevitable to keep out of your water jug without making drastic decisions, such as the practical necessity of having an income. However, the definition of dramatic varies from person to person. What is Stoicism? Of all the philosophies, beliefs, and faiths, only a few are truly practical. That is, they help people deal with their problems in real life, not just in school. A practical philosophy answers questions like, how should we behave in difficult circumstances? What is important in life and what is not? What makes for happiness and how can we feel happy? Stoicism is one of the most important practical philosophies. It was started by Zeno of Citium around 300 BC and became one of the most important philosophical groups in the Roman Empire. Zeno of Citium taught at the colonnade of the Agora in Athens, which is how the word Stoicism came to be. Therefore, Stoa literally means colonnade. There were many different kinds of Stoics, from Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who was the most powerful person in the world, to Epictetus, who was born a slave. Seneca, a rich and famous statesman who later became a teacher of Emperor Nero, is the other well-known Stoic. To clear up the biggest misunderstanding about Stoicism right away, it has nothing to do with being Stoic. Stoicism does not mean hiding or suppressing emotions. Having emotions and letting them out are both human. Stoicism does teach us to be masters of our emotions, though. Stoicism's character, though, is unclear. Stoicism is first and foremost a philosophy of practice, which cannot be said enough about the first 10. Philosophy is not for professors. It is about man and his surroundings. In fact, there are only a few things that keep coming up in Stoicism: that you can't know what will happen in the world, that changes are always around the corner, how short our lives are and how little influence we have over the future, how to behave or be in control and determined in these circumstances. But the most important thing that comes out is that we focus on the wrong things, which is the main cause of our happiness and dissatisfaction. We don't pay enough attention to the internal things we can control and instead focus on the external things we can't change. Attitudes, emotions, and opinions are some of these. Developing the right character traits, or virtues, is another. How did the Stoics live? There are two main stages in Stoicism: the old Stoa and the young Stoa. People like Zeno of Citium, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus lived in Stoicism in ancient Greece, which can be seen in the old Stoa. You could think of this group as the leaders of Stoicism. They were more set in their ways and less practical than most living Stoics today. The three most significant individuals from this time, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, are among the young Stoa who are usually better known. The teachings of these three Stoics are mostly the same, but there are some small differences. What makes these three individuals unique is that they perfectly demonstrate that there is more than one kind of Stoic philosopher, because they came from different walks of life. Everyone from slaves to the most powerful man in ancient times. So, Stoicism can be used by anyone, no matter what their role is in life or how important or unimportant they may be. Seneca was a famous orator, one of the richest people in his time, and Prince Nero's teacher and advisor. He demonstrated that it is possible to be successful in the middle of life and still maintain a Stoic frame of mind and, at least attempt to, be a good person. Epictetus served his master for many years after being born a slave. As a show of gratitude, he was later set free after making every effort to do his job well. His next step was to start his own school of philosophy. The most powerful man on earth combined his position with a practical philosophy about how to conduct yourself, what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Is that possible? Marcus Aurelius, of the label Emperor-Philosopher, was the last of the 5 good emperors. People were still under the influence of Stoic thought even after the time of the Greek and Roman era. Stoicism gave ideas to people like Frederick the Great, Montaigne, George Washington, Erasmus, Adam Smith, and John Stuart Mill. So, over the years, Stoicism has been a safe place for leaders, people who disagree, and people in general who are having a hard time. This is where this practical philosophy really shines. So, you can think of Stoicism as a tool in the human toolbox. It offers direction, assistance, and, when necessary, assistance in getting through life. Therefore, it is no wonder that Stoic philosophy has experienced revivals over the years. What do you think Stoicism's most important lessons are? Everything is only a view and an opinion. There is no such thing as good or bad. Everything in life is just a perception, and because each person forms their own perceptions, they will be different for each person. For example, someone with a different background, ideas, or attitude will have a different interpretation of the same perception. After all, if you perceive something and determine that it is bad, you can also determine that it is good with the same ease. The realization that a perception is made within yourself can be a tremendous relief. The Stoic will respond, neither good nor bad. Thoughts and mood make an event good or bad. You can decide to label your firing as bad if you so choose. You could also think, this is a good thing. This might finally give you the chance to go into business for yourself, or finally change careers. Marcus Aurelius said, "For thought changes everything that stands in the way of an action and employs it for its own purpose, and what was an obstacle to a work becomes an aid, and what prevented you from taking a certain path becomes a directional guide." Nothing is good or bad in and of itself. Our thoughts and how we see things make them that way. So, a Stoic person will choose to see every situation as a chance or an option. Are you fired? That gives you a chance to find something else. Is your marriage ending? You have a chance to start over with your life. Are you sick? In the extreme, that's a chance to try and improve your philosophy and state of mind. In a nutshell, what makes something good or bad is how we interpret our perceptions and thoughts about it. That being said, why not choose to see the bright side? Or do you see it as a chance? You have influence over what? Which ones do you not agree with? Actions and acts make up the other side, if perceptions and interpretations make up one side. So, a second important part of Stoicism is distinguishing between things you can't control and things you can. In theory, this is easy, but in practice it's not always simple. Like, think about the sun rising. Are we able to control this? Is there a way to make the sun rise earlier, or not at all? No. We have no influence over the sun rising. Why should we think about it then? For example, do you get annoyed when you're stuck in traffic? Cyclists who don't stop at pedestrian crossings, people who cut you off, and people who are suicidal on foot. Can you stop these people before they do anything? In all honesty, no. Therefore, why bother if you encounter any of the aforementioned in traffic? You don't have any control over it anyway. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to stop worrying about things you have no control over. From Epictetus, distinguishing between the things you can control and the things you can't should help you concentrate on the things you can. This avoids frustration and helps you internalize your actions and goals. In other words, you are the only one who can reach these goals, not anyone else. Stoics say we have influence over our attitudes, reactions, thoughts, and points of view. Other people, our bodies, our health, and everything made of matter are things we have no influence over. Some Stoics divide the areas of influence into 3, not 2. 1. Things you can change. 2. Things you can change slightly. And 3. Things you can't change much. Things over which you have no influence at all. Also, this doesn't mean that we should be passive like the Stoics said. One thing is to accept circumstances outside of your control. Being passive and weak in response to them is a different thing. Things that are out of our control should be something we can accept. But that doesn't mean we can't change our plans or come up with something else. You can quietly sit on the couch if it's raining and you want to go for a walk. You can also get an umbrella and rain gear and go anyway. To change your plans, you can go do something else inside. It is not the same as being passive to accept circumstances outside of your control. By the way, splitting up these areas of influence is not just a Stoic thing to do. Viktor Frankl, who lived through the Holocaust, wrote something similar. He learned that there is one thing that can never be taken away from a human being while incarcerated in a concentration camp. In other words, that means choosing how to react to circumstances. Fortunately, our daily lives do not resemble concentration camps, but we still encounter things that frustrate or anger us. So keep in mind that no one can control how you react to things, even if everything is against you. You are the only one who can do that. You have a choice. Will you be angry and frustrated by what happens, or will you adopt a more upbeat and stoic outlook on life going forward? In other words, ignore the rest and concentrate on the things you can directly influence. Practice suffering through hardship and misfortune. The Stoics knew that everything lasts only a short time. Of course, not only does life itself pass away, but so do happiness, wealth, health, and all other material possessions. We can expect to experience loss, bad luck, and misfortune because nothing in life is guaranteed. We can, however, prepare for misfortune and setbacks. On the one hand, we already do this with things that are real, like insurance, pensions, and extra money saved in the bank. All of these preparations help to prevent us from becoming needy and poor right away when misfortune hits. The mental and social side, on the other hand, doesn't get much training on how to deal with problems. Plato said, "Know then that good people should do the same, not shying away from hard and difficult circumstances, and not complaining about their fate, counting as a blessing whatever befalls them, seeing the positive side of it. Not what, but how you bear something is important." This very mental and emotional side was important to the Stoics. After all, you are better able to react resiliently and with fortitude by preparing for anything that could go wrong. A Stoic will look at each plan to see what might go wrong. Case in point, are you going on a trip? Then you could miss your train, lose your bag, or the plane could crash because the pilot gets sick. The Stoic is ready for anything because they have thought of all the problems that could happen with the plan. This sadness means that no failure is unanticipated, and even the things that can go wrong become a bit of a habit. This thought exercise was known as the premeditatio malorum by the Stoics, or contemplating evil or the bad. Today, it's also known as negative visualization. Over the years, this technique has become more common in self-help books. The technique helps people see that what they fear isn't as bad as they thought, or that the consequences aren't as bad as they thought. A few Stoics did something even better. As they held their wife or kids, they thought that they were hurt or lying down. Is this to the extreme and maybe a little unhealthy? Most likely, yes. There was bad stuff going on in the world, but this exercise not only helped them get ahead of it, it also brought them back to the present moment. Since right now is a great time to enjoy being together. Now you can take away everything. Happiness, joy, and appreciation must take place right now, not later when it's impossible. The Stoic is ingrained in the present through this technique, despite the fact that the past has been and the future is still unknown. After all, any day could be the last, so preparing for and contemplating the bad makes the present more valuable. Don't forget that life is short. Memento mori. One more theme that comes up a lot among the Stoics is Memento mori, which means remember to die. The Stoics are not the only ones who consider mortality and dying. In fact, this is a tradition that can be found in almost all philosophical and religious groups from ancient times. Caesar Marcus said, So jettison everything and hold only those few things. Remember that everyone lives only in the present, this brief moment. Everything else has already been lived or is still in limbo. Short is everyone's life. Small is the corner of the earth where he lives. Short is even the longest fame in posterity. Holding our mortality close isn't meant to make us sad or stop us from doing things. For the Stoic, contemplating death is a reminder to live a good life every day. In other words, it's now, not sometime in the future, that will be decided. We don't know when the end will come, so we need to behave well and try our best right now. Making the most of each day and living to the fullest is what Memento Mori really means. To be clear, it's not gloomy at all. If you look at it the right way, it can inspire and motivate you. Memento Mori also helps us realize how short life is. We work so hard for things like money, fame, and success that they don't really matter. We come into life empty-handed and leave it empty-handed. As a result, we only have material possession for a very brief time. Why should we care then? But what should we care about if everything is short and fleeting? Being a good person and doing the right things today is all that the Stoics would say is important. To do this, you need to be humble, honest, and aware. Young or old, poor or rich, sick or in good health, anyone can do this. Because of this attitude and way of being can never be taken away from us. It should make no difference to you whether you are chilled or nice and warm doing your duty, nodding off or well-rested, whether people taunt you or praise you, whether you are dying or busy with something else. What does it mean to be a good person? There isn't a single correct way to describe this, and it will be tough to find a word that works for everyone. People often have trouble putting into words what a good person really is, but everyone knows what that means and can live up to it. It takes more work to explain a good person than to be one, so the exact definition doesn't matter. Stoicism as a useful philosophy today. From a Stoic point of view, the lessons above are likely the most important. Keep the end in mind to help you remember to be a good person today. Be aware of your perceptions. Focus only on that which you have influence over. Stoicism teaches that philosophy should be put into practice. The here and now is more important than what professors and teachers talk about. In what way should we live? What really matters and what doesn't? How should we deal with our mortality, loss, and happiness? Every human being fights with these issues, and this is where Stoicism reveals its inner strength. In a way, Stoicism is all about the bad things that happen in life. The Stoics met and had to prepare for things like death, loss, illness, misfortune, living under tyranny, and exile. The ruler and philosopher Marcus Aurelius had to go to war and fight against betrayal. As Nero's advisor, Seneca knew that he was side with a tyrant and that any day could be his last. As a slave, Epictetus led an uncertain and dangerous life. Not only could he be replaced by dozens of other people, but he could also be abused without consequences. To put it simply, the Stoics put their practical philosophy into practice based on what they required. Comfort in the consequences of loss, strength and self-confidence in living as a good person, and difference in meeting the consequences. They lived by the idea of amor fati, which means they loved fate no matter what. The dark parts of life are what Stoicism is all about. But these are also the sides that every human being must confront at some point in their lives. Sides that are typically tough to get through and for which we are unprepared. As a result, Stoicism is a philosophy that was developed for challenging times. This is Stoicism's strength, and it is also the reason why, over the last few thousand years, it has constantly had revivals wherever people have been struggling. Stoicism is not a religion or a belief. It requires little explanation or teaching. It doesn't require teachers or professors. The teachings are not required, and there is no set ideology. Instead, it is like a buffet where anyone can pick up the lessons or help they need. The core of Stoicism is thus straightforward. It teaches us to approach everything else with inward difference and to demonstrate inner strength and fortitude. When things are tough, the Stoics offer help, comfort, and a way out. In a strange way, this way out always leads inward. Every person possesses strength, fortitude, and conviction, but sometimes it takes motivation and lessons from others to demonstrate this. This is what Stoicism had to offer 2,000 years ago. It still does today, and it will provide 2,000 years from now. How to deal with anger. Anger is a powerful emotion that can strike at any time and has negative consequences. A problem that many of us face is controlling our rage. A well-known Stoic philosopher named Seneca said that anger is the worst and wildest emotion that humans can feel. He made the case that anger, unlike other vices like greed or envy, completely impairs our ability to think rationally. Getting angry makes us more likely to hurt ourselves and others. The fact that anger of 10 intensifies over time rather than decreasing makes it even more challenging. If we don't try to keep it under control, it feels like driving a car without brakes as our anger builds up, and there's no safe way to stop. Other ancient thinkers, in addition to Seneca, have written 10 extensively on how to deal with anger. I will now discuss 7 tried and true techniques, mostly based on Stoic philosophy, that have been shown to be effective over time and can still be of valuable assistance to those who are striving to control their anger and rage better. It is important to realize that anger is a social issue as well as a person problem. It's possible for anger to ruin relationships, communities, and even whole countries. Therefore, it is essential to actively work to control this strong emotion and find ways to resolve conflicts more constructively and with manpower. 1. Putting things off is just that, putting them off, so make sure to pause to give yourself a chance to handle anger better. One of the most valuable lessons our parents taught us was probably this time-tested technique. The straightforward rule of count to 10 before you react when you're angry can make a huge difference in how we deal with our emotions and disagreements. Our original reactions and emotions are, on average, unfiltered and unfiltered, which is why this pause works so well. They come from the heat of the moment, with no nuance or reflection. We run the risk of making things worse and later feeling bad about our actions if we react quickly when we are angry. When anger starts to rise, the alternative is to consciously choose a moment of calm. One easy way to do this is to count to 10, but it doesn't have to be that strict. What's important is that this brief period of solitude, during which you try to remain calm or consider the best course of action, stops you from taking impulsive action based on your initial emotion. This brief period of reflection can have a big effect on how you react to the situation in the end. It's important to remember that we only get one chance to react to something, so why not pick something you won't be sorry for? Finding a more effective and peaceful way to deal with conflict and anger can be accomplished by creating this pause between emotion and action. 2. Why do we feel angry? Seneca made an interesting point in one of his essays that helps to answer this question. Often, our anger isn't at the perceived evil that someone did, but at that person. In other words, we are mad at the person, not the wrongful act. Consider those who don't follow the traffic rules, such as those who drive through a red light or a crossing in a hurry. It can be really annoying when things like this happen, don't they? If we're being honest, though, we might have to say that we don't always follow the rules. On the other hand, someone might not recognize your help with a project at work or school, or act like they did everything themselves. This might make you feel angry. If we are honest, however, we also realize that we are not perfect. Is it possible for us to always do everything perfectly? These examples might not apply to every person, but no matter what your situation is, you'll probably have to admit that you make mistakes too. It's possible that there are things about other people that make you angry, even though you make the same mistakes yourself occasionally. Since you are probably making the same mistakes, you should ask yourself if you are not making them before you let your anger out. What would you do if you had to act correctly every time? That person might not deserve your anger in that case. Instead, focus on the action that makes you angry. 3. Developing your character is an important part of controlling your anger and getting better at handling challenging situations in life. Character is what distinguishes how different people react to different circumstances. Some people see difficulties as opportunities, while others are quick to take offense. What may be less well known is that character is not set in stone. We can all take steps to improve our character and resilience. Character traits like positivity, resilience, and calmness significantly contribute to our ability to control anger more effectively. Is this easy to do? No, it's not. It takes hard work and self-reflection, but it is possible. To start, we can be aware of our character traits, both our strengths and weaknesses, and show that we're willing to work on ourselves. This way, we can get closer to our ideal image every day, like the English phrase, "Fake it until you make it." A useful habit that can help with this is to incorporate a moment of self-reflection every day. Think about how you handled different circumstances that day. What went well? What could have been done better? How can you make sure you respond differently in the future? 4. Tell the difference between perceptions and interpretations. This is a cornerstone of Stoicism. According to this philosophy, events happen, which we perceive. These events are essentially neutral. We have the freedom to label them as bad, good, offensive, positive, and so on. Imagine that someone is trying to insult you. The perception here is that someone is making negative statements about you. Perhaps that person is scolding you or trying to paint you in a negative light. This is just the perception. You have the freedom to make your own choice in this. Reference is frequently made to a story about Socrates in which someone hit him with a blow to the head. The perception here is that someone hit him. However, Socrates remained calm and responded with humor by saying that it is annoying that you never know when you have to walk down the street wearing a helmet. No matter what our perceptions or circumstances are, we always have the freedom to choose our own interpretations. This enables us to respond to the events of our lives with greater calm and wisdom. 5. What changes and where does it lead? These are crucial questions we can ask ourselves to better manage our anger. This technique encourages us to think rationally about the consequences and effects of our anger, which enables us to make more informed decisions about how we react. Let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what will this extreme emotion actually lead to? Will it cause the other person to change their behavior? Can we undo the other person's insult or behavior? To be honest, the answer is no most of the time. We rarely get other people to change their behavior by getting angry at them. Often, it doesn't help and can make things worse instead of better. In order to influence the future behavior of others, it is much wiser to react calmly and rationally. Also, there is a chance that we will make things worse if we get angry. The other person might react more violently as a result of our anger. Do you really need to be angry? Is it our intention to create conflict? Or should we just accept the insult or bad behavior from the other person? We have better things to do with our time and energy. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, said, "They will do the same thing anyway, even if you are bursting with anger." If we know that getting angry doesn't help and often makes things worse, why should we make ourselves angry? It's easier said than done, but you should give this technique a shot. The next time you feel angry, take a moment to think rationally about the possible consequences. Hopefully, consciously considering the consequences will help you react better. 6. The Stoics taught us a valuable lesson. See the world as one. They had a large picture view of life. They want to get across that humans are fundamentally social creatures who come together to form a single society and community. It would be just as unnatural for your hands to want to hurt your feet, they say, to stress this point. The hands and feet are part of the body, which is a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. This analogy works just as well for society. Every person is only a small part of society, but when all of these parts, people, come together, they create something much bigger than the sum of their parts. To put it another way, people are meant to live together in peace and unity. It would also be unnatural from this point of view to hurt or upset other people. Everyone needs to work together for society to grow and do well. We add to the progress of all humankind by respecting, helping, and understanding each other. Let's try to see the world as a whole, where each of us has a big part to play. Let's work together to create a better future in a society where respect and compassion for one another are paramount. Together, we have the power to change and make the world a better place. 7. One more well-known Stoic teacher, Epictetus, also wrote about anger. Epictetus argues that when we allow ourselves to succumb to anger, we not only experience the immediate consequences of that anger, but also reinforce a harmful habit, similar to adding fuel to a fire. He encouraged us to recognize that each episode of anger strengthens this habit, making it more challenging to control in the future. He emphasized the profound idea that anger begets anger, which, when translated, means anger begets anger. Epictetus gives us valuable advice on how to get rid of anger. He says that if we don't want to be controlled by anger, we should confront and diffuse it right away. In essence, we become what we frequently think and do. Every thought and action is a conscious choice that shapes the kind of person we are becoming. If we strive to be polite and kind, even when it feels unnatural, we will eventually develop into a person who embodies those qualities. We must ask ourselves, is that really the person I want to be? Because giving in to anger only makes it stronger. If we choose not to give in to anger, we are choosing to weaken the habit of becoming angry. Anger is one of the most challenging emotions to control because it can overwhelm us and cause impulsive behavior and thoughtless reactions. The reason why it is of the utmost importance to control anger extends beyond the immediate power outburst. Not only is anger a powerful and of 10 ugly emotion, but it also tends to exacerbate and escalate situations. Therefore, it is crucial to use deliberate strategies to manage anger. One such strategy is to pause for a moment between the arising anger and our reaction. This brief pause allows us to think more clearly and respond better to the situation that makes us angry. In addition, it's important to realize that nobody is perfect, not even ourselves. Being aware of our own flaws can help us be kinder to others and slower to judge them. Working on our own character is another valuable approach. It takes time, but character building helps us develop positive traits like positivity, calmness, and resilience, which makes it easier for us to deal with negative emotions like anger. These wise philosophers taught us to rethink our interpretations of events, predict the consequences of our actions, and see the world as a coherent whole in which harmony and cooperation are essential to our well-being. Stoic philosophy, as described in the writings of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, provides profound insights and practical advice for controlling and improving our emotional responses. The texts of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius are highly recommended if you want to learn more about this philosophy and learn how to manage your emotions more effectively. This ancient wisdom is still relevant and valuable to our modern society because it teaches us how to stay calm and respond constructively even in the most trying circumstances. Contrary to popular belief, philosophy is primarily for man, for every day of life. The original intent of philosophy was to assist people in dealing with the challenges and difficulties they faced in their lives. But somewhere between the beginnings of philosophy and the present, it seems that philosophy has moved more and more toward academia. To this day, philosophy is mostly taught in classrooms, and people read philosophers primarily as part of their studies, not on a voluntary basis to improve their own lives. In Greek, philo means love, and sophia means wisdom. This is where the word philosophy comes from. It literally means love of wisdom. And where do we need wisdom the most? In our daily lives, when we're dealing with problems and figuring out how to handle the tough situations and challenges we all face. Stoicism, a branch of philosophy, is a perfect example of practical philosophy with immediately applicable life wisdom. On the contrary, it remains relevant through the ages, focused on people and their everyday problems, and offers valuable life guidance. Stoicism's practical exercises serve a number of purposes, and they are a crucial component of the philosophy. They make you more resilient by preparing you for the problems and setbacks you may encounter in life. They work on your personal progress and character development to help you become the best version of yourself. By focusing on what truly matters and cultivating inner contentment, they show you the way to happiness. Stoicism is a living philosophy that shows us the way to a more fulfilled and virtuous life. It reminds us that philosophy belongs not only in dusty books, but in everyday life, where it can help us navigate the complexities of the modern world. Why is it crucial to apply these exercises then? Because knowledge alone won't help you achieve anything. Practical philosophy means putting it into practice every day. 1. Negative visualization, or the premeditatio malorum as the Stoics called it, is a powerful philosophical technique that helps us be better prepared for life's unforeseen events and challenges. Seneca's wise words emphasize the importance of preparing the unexpected so that we are not completely surprised by unpleasant events. The Stoics understood this all too well and therefore emphasized the importance of mental preparation. Negative visualization is a tool that helps us prepare ourselves for possible setbacks and unwanted events. The theory behind it is that when we have mentally prepared ourselves for possible setbacks and unwanted events, we are mentally better prepared when they actually occur. The power of negative visualization comes from the fact that it smooths out the edges of surprise and panic. It enables us to react calmly and thoughtfully, even in the most challenging circumstances. This power can be applied in a variety of ways. Imagine what could go wrong before an important event, such as a job interview, a date, or an exam. For example, what if you get sick on the day of the exam? What if awkward silences happen during your date? By thinking through these possible scenarios, you can prepare yourself for how you would react and handle the situation. Negative visualization can also be applied to more general life challenges. For example, what if you were suddenly faced with a major illness, the death of a loved one, or your own mortality? By contemplating these questions, we prepare ourselves for life's inescapable circumstances. The most important thing about negative visualization is that it teaches us to expect that our plans will occasionally fall apart. It prepares us for life's uncertainties so that we are not surprised when they arise, and allows us to respond with greater resilience and balance to the ups and downs of human existence. The idea of role models and striving to be like the sage is an intriguing part of Stoic philosophy that motivates us to develop as individuals and live in accordance with Stoic virtues and in harmony with nature. What would the wise person do? Is a practice. Comes with many benefits. Advice on moral dilemmas. When faced with moral decisions or challenges in life, it allows us to consider how the sage would react. This helps us make ethical decisions that are in line with Stoic virtues like courage, justice, wisdom, and moderation. Emotional self-control. Before we react impulsively to situations that might make us angry, frustrated, or sad, we can take a moment to think and act more rationally by asking ourselves this question: self-evaluation and growth. By asking ourselves what the sage would do, we can evaluate our own character and behavior, face our flaws, and strive for improvement. Peace and serenity. Thinking about the sage's behavior gives us a chance to pause, think, and try to act in a way that is consistent with Stoic principles. This idea reminds us that we can make small changes every day to live more in line with the Stoic mind, and that we can grow even though we are imperfect human beings. We may never be perfect like the sage in Stoic teaching, but it gives us a roadmap for how to do so. Marcus Aurelius emphasizes the significance of this practice by pointing to the infinity of time and the grandeur of the universe, which help us understand the problem of our problems. Putting our problems and challenges in perspective is a powerful tool from Stoic philosophy that helps us respond with greater calm and serenity to the challenges we face in life. To stress the significance of putting our problems in perspective, here are some additional considerations. Relativization of the problem. When we remind ourselves that the present is temporary, our problems seem less important. Things that seem important now might not seem important in a year or even a few months. This realization helps us become less emotionally invested in the problems we face. Strengthening resilience. Putting our problems in perspective can boost our resilience. We realize that we've been through similar challenges before and that we can keep going even when things get tough. Fear and worry can be reduced by understanding the relativity of our problems in the context of the universe as a whole and realizing that most things are not as bad as we sometimes think they are. Putting our problems in perspective can also increase our gratitude for the good things in our lives. We realize that we are fortunate to live in a vast universe and that many of our daily concerns are actually privileges in comparison to the challenges other people face. In short, putting our problems in perspective is a powerful Stoic practice that teaches us to be more balanced, resilient, and serenity-oriented in the face of adversity. The idea behind voluntary discomfort, as emphasized in Stoic philosophy, is that we must consciously abstain from certain comforts and luxurious habits in order to train ourselves to let go of dependence on external things and cultivate inner strength. It's possible to fight hedonistic habituation, which is when we quickly become dependent on more and more pleasure and comfort in order to feel the same level of satisfaction. When we choose to be uncomfortable, we break this cycle and learn that we don't need to constantly seek out more external stimuli to feel good. Self-control and discipline. Voluntary discipline requires a certain amount of self-control and discipline. It allows us to consciously choose a more difficult path even when the temptation of comfort is present. These skills are important for personal growth and resilience. Awareness of abundance. By briefly giving up some comforts, we end up realizing how much we actually have. This helps us cultivate gratitude for what we have and reminds us that we don't need other things to be happy. Voluntary discomfort can also lead to self-comfort. It reveals our own weaknesses and comfort zones, allowing us to better understand how we handle challenges and discomfort, which can lead to personal growth and improvement. Focus on the internal. Stoics always stress the importance of internal virtues and character growth over external successes and pleasures. One practical way to incorporate this philosophy into our daily lives is to voluntarily experience discomfort. In essence, voluntary discomfort is an exercise in developing inner strength, reducing dependence on external factors, and cultivating a more stoic lifestyle. It reminds us that we are in control of our responses to external circumstances and that we are capable of thriving even in difficult circumstances. It provides valuable lessons for personal growth and well-being. 5. The Stoic philosophy emphasizes the realization that everything is simply borrowed, which has deep implications for how we value and experience our lives. This philosophical approach has the following benefits. Letting go of material attachment. By realizing that the things we own are only borrowed, we can let go of material attachment and the desire for more and more possessions. This can help us live a simpler, more constrained life where we don't feel trapped by the desire for material success. Focus on inner virtue. The Stoics say that the only real wealth is the virtue of the spirit. By realizing that our character traits, actions, and attitudes are all that truly belong to us, we are encouraged to concentrate on cultivating virtue and a positive attitude. Realizing the transience of material things encourages us to be grateful for what we have and to enjoy the present. This allows us to value our relationships, belongings, and experiences more, and to draw greater joy from them. Having the mindset that everything is temporary can help us feel less stressed and worried about losing things in the outside world. We know that things will change and disappear, which can make us stronger. Focus on what we can influence. Stoics stress the importance of distinguishing between things we can influence and things we cannot. By focusing on our own thoughts, feelings, and actions, we can direct our attention to what is actually within our control. In short, the realization that everything is merely borrowed is a powerful philosophical exercise that can help us live a more fulfilling and satisfied life. It invites us to rethink our priorities, let go of what is not important, and appreciate more deeply what really matters in our lives. It is a philosophical exercise that can help us thrive in a world full of change and uncertainty. 6. The strong philosophical approach of one small step each day emphasizes the consistency and strength of daily habits. This approach has many benefits and can be applied to many different areas of life, including sustainable growth. By taking small steps every day toward a goal or desired change, you increase the chance of sustainable growth and improvement. This also prevents the pressure and sense of overwhelm that come with trying to achieve big goals all at once. Building self-discipline. Making a small effort every day requires self-discipline and dedication. Over time, this can lead to a strong development of self-discipline, which is valuable for a person. Gradual habit change. Changing behavior is usually a slow process. By taking small positive actions every day, you can gradually replace bad habits with good ones. Continuous learning and improvement. The philosophy of taking a small step every day emphasizes the idea that we can always learn and improve. It supports constant striving for knowledge and being open to new experiences and knowledge. Focusing on the steps you can take today will encourage you to live in the present and not get bogged down in worry about the future, which can help lower stress and anxiety. Build momentum. Small daily steps can build momentum and create a sense of accomplishment, which can encourage you to keep going and take on bigger challenges. In conclusion, the idea of taking one small step every 10 days can be applied to many different areas of life and can result in growth and change for the better. It reminds us that big goals can be achieved through consistent, daily effort, and that the path to success of a goal starts with small steps. 7. Daily reflection is a valuable practice that can aid in personal development, self-awareness, and ongoing improvement. It gives you the chance to think back on your daily mistakes and learn from them. Self-awareness. Daily reflection helps you better understand yourself by allowing you to see patterns in your actions, emotions, and reactions. Learning moments. By reflecting on your day, you can learn from your experiences. You can think about when you did something right and when you could have done it better. This helps you grow and change. Goal setting. Daily reflection can help you stay focused on your goals and responsibilities. You can make sure that you are spending your time and energy wisely by asking yourself if your actions are in line with your long-term goals. Stress reduction. By allowing you to write down your worries and concerns, you can lessen the emotion charge and better understand how you deal with stressful situations. Positive mindset. Daily reflection enables you to concentrate on what went well and highlight positive parts of your day. This can help cultivate a more positive mindset and encourage gratitude. Learning from your experiences helps you be better prepared for future situations. Adaptability is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances and challenges. There are many ways to incorporate daily reflection into your routine, such as writing in a journal, taking notes on your phone, or just taking some quiet time to think before bed. The most important thing is consistency, as this allows you to reap the benefits of reflection over time. Stoic philosophy has the potential to bring about positive change in our lives, but it is crucial to realize that this is not a quick process. It takes time, patience, and consistency to reap the benefits of this philosophy. Stoic exercises provide valuable tools for personal growth and dealing more effectively with the trials of life. The first step is to start with one of the Stoic exercises and gradually incorporate it into your daily routine. The goal is to gradually incorporate the exercise into your daily routine rather than to achieve perfection right away. Stoic principles will help you become more resilient over time, even in the midst of difficulties and setbacks. You will be able to better handle stress and negative emotions, and you will find inner peace and commitment. These positive changes will have an impact on not only your personal life, but also how you interact with the outside world. Stay dedicated to your personal growth and keep practicing, even if it seems challenging at times. Stoic philosophy is not a final goal, but a journey toward a better, more steadfast self. With perseverance and determination, you will continue to reap the benefits and go through a profound transformation that will improve your life. Seneca on time and how long people live. The Length of Life, one of Seneca's most famous essays, talks about things that may sound like modern problems: being busy, not having time to rest, and feeling like the days and years are flying by. The good news is that these problems were around long before Seneca's time. People were very angry about having too many responsibilities and not enough free time. The bad news is that it seems like not much has changed for most people over the last few thousand years. We all have 24 hours a day, and we all know we won't live forever. However, some people make better use of their time on Earth than others, and many people could benefit from the occasional wake-up call from their daily activities and reflect on the waste of their time. Who was Seneca? For a full biography, see here. In short, Seneca was one of the three main Stoic philosophers, along with Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. He was an advisor to Emperor Nero and wrote a number of plays and other works, but he is best known for his philosophical writing, which includes two types. 1. Essays such as The Length of Life, and 2. The Letters to Lucilius, in which he goes into more detail. Here are some things Seneca said that can help us use our time better. Seneca said, "Life is not short, we make it short. We don't have too little of it, we spill it all over the place. It's like a king's huge wealth. Everything is gone in an instant if it gets into the wrong hands. A modest possession, however, grows with use when given to someone who takes good care of it. In the same way, whoever orders things well gets a lot of life. What is wrong with us complaining about nature? It's very kind and helpful. Life is long if you can handle it. We have all the time we will ever need, because it is one of the few things in life that everyone has the same amount of. 24 hours to end, to spend however you please. We don't know how long we have left in this world, so how many more days can we use to be happy and achieve what we want to achieve? No one knows the answer to this question, but we should arrange each day as if it were our last. You live like you'll never die, without thinking about how weak you are or how much time has already passed. As if the supply were level and plenty, you waste time. Now and then, the day you give something or someone may be the last. All of your desires and fears are those of mortals. Despite this, most of us waste and squander a lot of it. There are several reasons for this, and most of us can consciously or unknowingly identify them. But we do have one big benefit. Even though we waste a lot of time and have wasted a lot of time in the past, this doesn't change the future. Every day after today, we will have to decide how to spend our time again. Because time keeps coming at us, every day we have a chance to use it better. We don't know how much time we have left, but we do know that every morning when we wake up, we get more for the day. And with each new source comes a choice and a responsibility. How will we use it most effectively? Stay busy, both of us and others. Seneca said, "People will never let someone else take their land. They get stones and weapons ready for the smallest border dispute. But that other people come into their lives they think is best, or they even bring in their future owners. Nobody wants to be the person who just gives away their money, but each person gives his life to everyone else. Their discipline to keep their legacy safe is very sharp. That being said, they waste time like there's no tomorrow, while only this is a totally honorable way to be greedy." The saying, "time is money," is true, but we would rather give away our time than money. This is a paradox. We give our time away in huge amounts while complaining that we are so busy and cannot find rest. But what are we really busy with? Things we have voluntarily imposed on ourselves and things we have voluntarily said yes to. If we are honest with ourselves, we also know that it is mostly the second category answer. We say yes to things we could have easily said no to, such as a challenging job that takes up a lot of our time, long commutes, various clubs we have to be a member of, social engagements we would rather not have had, and other unimportant activities. Busy, very busy. If that's the case, it's clear that we're wasting our time. But this is only one side of the story. We also waste a lot of time on our own initiative. We of course create the busyness or stress ourselves. The average person spends more than 3 hours per day in front of a television and just over an hour per day on communication activities like social media and sending messages. Shouldn't we also apply some curiosity here? How then should we plan our days? The man who leaves no moment to himself, who arranges each day as if it were his last, neither hopes nor fears tomorrow's day, Seneca said. What can bring new joy to any hour then? You know everything and enjoy everything to the fullest. Fortuna can further arrange everything however she wants. His life is already inside. You can still add something more, but you can't take something away. While traveling, reading, or otherwise keeping themselves busy, Seneca says that we should live our lives consciously and make sure we do everything on purpose. In the essay, he uses this to show how people who are traveling or otherwise keeping themselves busy can suddenly arrive at their destination before they even realized it. Our lives work the same way. If we are always living on autopilot without thinking about what we are doing and how we are doing it, time will pass us by. The first step to being more deliberate with our time is to realize that our time is very limited. Everyone will wake up on a day that will be their last. We will all eventually die. Lugubrious, perhaps, but it is an enormously powerful message that we need to tell ourselves every day. Seneca says, "So above all, do not think that someone has lived long when you see his grey hair or wrinkles. There is a difference between living and surviving. He has not lived long, he has existed long." Existence is a life without a purpose, a life full of misplaced passions and desires, or a life full of greed and ambition. Existence can also be something we do automatically, and time slips away from us very quickly. But living is something different. Living is consciously managing the time you have and focusing on the goals that are important to you. The specific goals are not what matter. Seneca also offers advice on what to study when we have free time: philosophy, and specifically Stoic philosophy. He lists a number of things we should learn, including how to love and respect the virtues, how to control our desires and put them to work for the things that matter, and how to achieve and maintain a sense of calm in the face of adversity. In conclusion, we can say that we should: 1. Arrange each day as if it were our last. 2. Focus on the things that add value to us personally. And 3. Be frugal with our use of time to avoid living on autopilot. Finally, here is one more Seneca quote from The Length of Life to show how important his advice is. "Those who forget the past, let the present slip away, and fear the future will have the shortest lives and the most worries." They don't understand until it's too late. All this time they were busy doing nothing. They only realize it at the finish line. In the Stoic journal, you write to yourself, "I slam my notebook shut with a soft, dull sound. I feel calm and more energized than before I wrote down my thoughts," which is a technique also used by the Tens. I got the idea to keep a journal after reading about Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He was a man who really impressed me, so I went to the store right away to get some small notebooks that I could easily carry with me everywhere. On the first page I wrote, "To myself, a book about home rules, what I've learned, and observations. What I should tell myself most of all. An aim that is pretty clear. Just apply it in practice now." I didn't give myself any rules to follow. I just wrote when I felt inspired or when I was feeling down. After 6 months, I made it my goal to write every day. When I made that choice, I asked myself, am I happy with the progress I've made so far, or do I want to keep going? The answer was that I felt like going on. What is the next thing I can do? That was the follow-up question. The answer was to pay more attention to this journal I had. Other options were available to me, but it's not always wise to try to do everything at once. The main goal for now was to work on the things going on inside me that affect how I live my life and treat myself. Making sure I have a strong base from which to build seemed wise. The rest will come after this. What the goal? 3 types of passages appear in my journal. Short statements in the form of direct advice. Ideas that have arisen in my mind that I want to turn into practical advice. Problems I encounter in my personal life and how to deal with them in the way the Stoics would teach us. In short, an indispensable feature of my personal journal is that practical advice always comes out of it that I can start working on instantly. It also sometimes happens that I write about complaints that people make of the Stoic way of life. In these cases, I try to consider what elements these people are right and what elements these people are wrong about. Sometimes it is necessary to dissect their fallacies and/or misunderstandings about Stoicism and, in a neutral way, how things are. This has the effect of giving my own understanding of the theory a stronger structure. Take for yourself that you have your best goals at heart. like a best friend who is not afraid to point the facts at you out of kindness. Seneca tells us to be our own best friend. Therefore, if you take this attitude, it will be less scary to engage in self-reflection. I can so imagine that you are more likely to share your problems with someone you trust, with your innermost processes, and whose opinion you value. So it comes down to not only being strict with yourself, but also being kind to yourself. I have written many a time to myself how important it is that I take good care of myself. Things like getting good sleep, eating well, and giving myself rest time then come to mind. It is only reasonable to yourself to expect things from yourself when you can handle them. If not, then you take care of yourself. Once you are then back to your strength, you can go on with your set goals again. Deal with yourself in a reasonable way, as a best friend would. Beneficial side effects. Beyond the calmness and energy, there are two other effects of writing out your thoughts that help you on your way to self-improvement. The first effect is getting to know yourself. You are going to learn what kinds of things stand out to you, what kinds of problems you run into, and where your strengths lie. Know yourself is one of the oldest pieces of advice out there, and with good reason. Just as it's important to get along and work well with other people, it's just as important to get along and work well with yourself. You learn to help yourself. You learn your limits. You learn where you can still grow, and you learn where you have already made progress. The second effect is something you would hear more often in, say, the sports world. Practice makes perfect, as the saying goes. What I mean by this is that you are training yourself to be a certain way in life. That's because you are writing down over and over again how you deal with issues you encounter with a calm mind. You are, as it were, before such an event happens again, already practicing how you will deal with it. With enough practice, such thoughts and the behaviors become a habit. You will begin to notice that a lot of things that would bother you before suddenly don't bother you much anymore. The side effects mentioned so far are generally aimed at yourself, but it is also possible to help others through your journal. I remember a time when I opened my journal to read back in it. I wanted to see what my progress was, and if there were things I write about frequently. I also wanted to remind myself of lessons I might have been forgetting. Right around that time, a friend of mine was having a problem. This friend had had a talk with someone else about exactly this problem, where a certain conclusion had come. I had suggested that this conclusion did not sit well with me, but that I did not yet know why. Then I read back a certain thought I had had and immediately went to work. It was a true eureka moment. I told her about it and gave her advice that she could work on instantly. The difference between what the other person and I had suggested was as follows. The other person left this mutual friend with a conclusion that implied she was a bad person, or at the very least, was a person who experiences inner problems and therefore makes questionable choices in life that have bad influences on people around her. My approach was different. I advised this friend to consider where these behaviors were coming from. What needs, perhaps unconsciously, she thinks she is fulfilling through these behaviors. When she works out what she needs, then she can find more healthy ways to fulfill these needs. In this conclusion, she was simply a human being who has the potential to grow. Consequently, she frequently stated that she appreciated this advice and that she felt happy more often after applying it. I would like to advise, however, that while giving help, indicate that you yourself are not a master of the art of living. Above all, also show that you don't want to force the other person to do anything. What I like to say myself is, I am not going to tell you what to do, but I think it is valuable to at least dwell on these questions. So be aware every time that you don't have all the answers and know everything correctly. Let that be known. What you can do is show that you have thought carefully about your advice. Give reasons why you think this is the right course of action. like the example from the previous line, before you start yourself. It is important to also have knowledge of the teachings of Stoicism in order to use techniques like this. Personally, I like to read from the Manual of Epictetus, the personal notes of Marcus Aurelius, and the works of Seneca. I then read at least one chapter from 2 of 3 books before I go to sleep. Then I get to work on my personal journal. A lot of the Stoic teachings I have already made my own, but reading these works especially helps me get into the right mental state to give myself correct advice. Although I must say, I am still learning, which is also a core characteristic of a true student of Stoicism, the recognition that you can always learn something more. Another benefit of reading primary, but sometimes secondary, literature is that you never have to run out of inspiration to write about. It seems to me the best thing to do is to keep the things you write down close to yourself, your own insights and your own difficulties. But who knows? You may have a day where you had no insights, or where you could handle everything just fine. On days like those, it is always possible to reflect on the thoughts of our predecessors who described them in their works. On the other hand, don't be afraid to reiterate something you've written before, or something you've written about many times. Sometimes you just need to say it to yourself one more time. It is even possible to nuance your previous opinions and make it a more complete and/or compact passage. Besides, if it's something you write about more often, you're only doing yourself a favor by being so determined to deal with it. The goal, of course, is that someday you will get to a state where you remind yourself of it, almost out of habit, without having to write it down. On the other hand, you can also take the time to write something other than an opinion for once. I have sometimes taken time to write down what I was grateful for. In those cases, I usually write about what I am grateful for at that moment, but of course you can also make a list about things you are grateful for in general. This allows you to find peace and experience contentment in the way your life looks right now. An alternative that I recently implemented is to draw a picture of the, in my mind, ideal Stoic. You could also write about how you see your ideal self in a few years. You can cite the ideal Stoic as a source to model your behavior after, and your ideal self can make you aware of what your goals are and what you still want to work on. In both cases, you demonstrate to yourself what behaviors you would like to perform, train. You immediately know what to do the next day. Then, during that evening, you can reflect on your progress. Above all, I want to work on being as good a person as possible. To achieve this, I have decided to adhere to the idea of the Stoics. Man is a social animal that can think rationally. Conclusion: use your ability to think rationally for the good of yourself and society. This can be done with the help of a journal, but it can also be done in other ways. Everyone is different, and therefore everyone learns differently. However, regarding Stoicism, there are some things that cannot be missing when practicing it. Take it seriously, work on it every day, go about it as carefully as you can, and make sure to set a clear aspiration. That way, you can check at any time whether you are well on your way. How do you change desires and habits? Donald Robertson is no stranger to modern Stoic literature. He has previously published a book about the link between Stoicism and modern cognitive behavioral therapy, and he has also been writing about Stoicism in online blogs for years. Robertson is therefore best known as a cognitive behavioral psychologist, in which he places a special emphasis on the application of Stoicism in modern therapeutic practice. In his newly published book, Learn to Think Like a Roman Emperor, using the life of Marcus Aurelius, he applies ancient Stoic techniques and practical wisdom, combined with research and experience from modern cognitive behavioral therapy. The book contains many interesting techniques in which ancient philosophy is given a new look and used in a modern setting. One of the intersections between ancient philosophy and modern behavioral therapy is about changing our desires and habits. Below, we look at how, by applying Stoic philosophy combined with Donald Robertson's behavioral therapy, we can best do this. We are what we repeatedly do. Thousands of years ago, Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." The thoughts we repeatedly have become part of our personality. The actions we repeatedly take become habits, and in time, our life path is mapped out by these habits. Even the smallest actions and habits we have now can have a big impact over the years. Those 15 minutes we spend daily practicing an instrument means, over decades, that we can become virtuosos. The daily self-reflection on our actions and deeds causes us to adjust our life course a little bit each day, and over the years we get closer and closer to our goal. But there are also things we repeatedly do that we could label as bad. Take, for example, the hours we spend daily in front of the TV. Where does that lead us? Why do we spend so much time on this in the first place? Even worse, we often do these things unconsciously. It is a habit to turn on the TV every day after coming home from work. But couldn't we spend this time much better? Wouldn't it be nice to change our desires and habits? The problem of habit. Of course, many of our bad habits bring short-term pleasure. Social media and TV bring us entertainment, and it helps to pass the time and relax. But there is a big difference between pleasure and happiness. One is a short-term feeling and very fleeting. The other is only attainable in the long term, sustainable, and a form of joie de vivre. The former is easily attainable, the latter is not. It requires perseverance and is not easy to find. But most importantly, the pursuit of joy does not lead to happiness. There is no link between the two. Therefore, it is important to think carefully about our desires, behaviors, and habits. What we want and think about now, does it add to our happiness? What we do repeatedly now, does it help the goals we want to achieve? Does it help with our life fulfillment? If yes, perfect. If not, we need to change it as soon as possible. Because although our habits have little impact in the short term, they will be crucial in the long term. Thus, the second part of Aristotle's quote says, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, therefore, is not an action, but a habit. We cannot suddenly choose to act correctly or excellently. They are traits we must practice every day. Enter Donald Robertson. But how do we adjust our desires and habits? After all, it's easier said than done. This is where Stoicism and Donald Robertson's cognitive behavioral therapy come together. In his book, he uses a few steps to describe how applying Stoic wisdom helps us adjust our habits and desires. Step 1. Do a functional analysis. The very first step is to do a functional analysis of your behavior. What are the long-term consequences of what you are doing? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Of course, everyone knows that excessive drinking and smoking are bad for you, but probably few people really stop to think about what the consequences actually are for you personally. What effect does it have? You probably don't feel as good, you have regular hangovers, your work and productivity suffer, and you also may not be the person you want to be in front of your family and friends. So the goal of this first step is to identify which desires and habits are having a negative effect in your life. The examples above are obvious, but also look at all the passive consumption in your life, such as the hours you spend on social media or in front of the TV. The question you can ask yourself here is, what desires or habits clash with the core values you have or want to develop, or the life goals you set for yourself? You can probably think of some examples for yourself. Step 2. A piece of mindfulness. Once you know which behaviors and desires are having a negative impact and which ones you therefore want to replace, you should try to catch them in the act. It is difficult to change something if you only think about how you should have done something differently after the fact. You should try to intervene during the situation itself. Thoughts like, "For once it can't hurt," or "Starting tomorrow I'm going to stop," are disastrous. If we are honest with ourselves, we really know that one time can do no harm, and we are not going to stop tomorrow. It is a form of self-deception. So a lot of behavior is automatic, and so cultivating self-awareness about what we are thinking and taking control of our internal monologue can already make a huge difference. In fact, even better, by intervening immediately when such thoughts surface, you can immediately disrupt the desire or behavior. So this is a piece of Stoic mindfulness, observing your own feelings, desires, and promptings for behavior. Step 3. Cognitive distance. Within Donald Robertson's cognitive behavioral therapy, the theme of cognitive distancing recurs regularly. Simply put, cognitive distancing refers to distancing ourselves from our thoughts, desires, and feelings, and seeing them as an option rather than something we must necessarily follow or act upon. So it's about separating 1. What comes to mind, and 2. What you end up doing. Epictetus's famous quote said that what bothers people is not the things themselves, but how they think about them. How you feel, what you think, or what you want to do is not bound by the thing. Donald Robertson offers other techniques you can use, such as writing down recurring thoughts, speaking in the third person about what comes to mind, "Donald, now think that," and dissecting the situation as Marcus Aurelius did. "Do you desire a glass of wine? Then consider that it is only fermented grape juice. This will immediately disrupt your thoughts and maybe even take away the feeling." In short, remember that you don't have to act on every thought, feeling, or desire that comes up. You can always judge them and make your own plan. Step 4. Give good in place of bad. Step 4 only requires that we try to change our bad thoughts and desires into good ones if you know what's important to you and what fits with your core values, if you apply self-observation, and if you create some cognitive distance. Take the first example of doing too much passive things, like watching TV. We know it doesn't fit the person we want to be after the analysis, and we pull ourselves away from our thoughts to get back on the couch. We can create a good habit in its place as soon as we put some distance between ourselves and the bad habit, like taking the time to do something fun, spend time with family, or learn something new. This step ultimately entails replacing our bad habits with something that is good, fits our core values, and contributes to long-term happiness. What leads to happiness in the end? Hence, the question of what will bring lasting happiness continues. How can we say that our lives are fulfilling us, that our lives will make us feel good when we look back on them? Alexander the Great and Marcus Aurelius both said that happiness comes from a few things. In his book, Robertson lists these things. Here are 2 that might be the most useful. First, making progress. If we're working toward a long-term goal that fits with who we are as a person and can see that we're making progress, then we are on the right track to happiness and satisfaction. Every step we take in the right way inspires us for the future and gives us satisfaction when we look back on it. 2. Being thankful rather than having desire. We can't achieve happiness by getting what we desire, but rather by desiring what we already have, according to a well-known proverb. This is also true for the Stoics, and it has to do with the ideas of premeditatio malorum and amor fati. There is a beautiful way to put it by Robertson. Desire is the presence of something that is missing, while gratitude is the absence of things that are present. Even though the Stoics were grateful for everything they had, they didn't become dependent on it. They were happy with what they had. So instead of wishing for things that aren't there, we should be grateful for what we do have and enjoy it. In that way, we can always be or become happy. Learning from others is an important part of growing. A bit stands out in the personal notes of Marcus Aurelius when reading it. It doesn't have any philosophical ideas, problems, or reflections that Aurelius writes to himself, like the later chapters do. Instead, it has a list of significant people in his life, including family, friends, and teachers who taught him something or whose character traits he admires. To give an example, from his father, modesty, or from his mother, religiousness, generosity, and a cheap way of life. Or from his adoptive father, Emperor Antoninus Pius, being calm, following through with choices without question, and listening well to others. He reflects on 16 individuals who have had a positive influence on his life in this short chapter, which only makes up a small part of the personal notes as a whole. It always makes you wonder why. What is this list's purpose? Is it to show appreciation for the lessons and wisdom these individuals have provided him with, or is it meant to keep the examples of other people close at hand? What would the wise man do in a particular circumstance, as in the Stoic exercise? Probably a combination of the above is the answer to this question. For the parts these individuals have played in his life, he first expresses his gratitude. He also looks up to the virtues and character traits that other people have, even if he struggles with them himself. The list of people is therefore quite varied, including family members, friends, Stoic thinkers, and even the gods. And this shouldn't come as a surprise, because we are all just one person with a unique set of character traits, either natural or learned. Every person has both good and bad traits. Some people are very good at certain things, while others may not be as good. This is another reason why other people can teach us. We are all flawed and imperfect as individuals, but as a group, we can help each other learn by noticing and copying the good things about each other. We can use this learning, the virtues, character traits, and lifestyles of others, to better ourselves, just like Marcus Aurelius did. Absolutism of morals. However, we tend to approach this from a moral absolutist viewpoint when we look at other people. That is, there is no grey area or room for error. It's possible to have a successful business and problems at home. Although the other person is always nice and calm, they might not be assertive or have low self-esteem. Does this mean we can't learn from these individuals because they're not perfect or wise all the time? No, we know that nobody is perfect and that everyone has good and bad days. So, if we only decided to learn from people who are perfect in everything, there would be few, if any, people left. This is a better way to look at it. Everyone has good and bad traits, and we can pick to learn from the good traits and ignore the bad ones. We can't find perfection in a single person, but maybe we can approach it by combining the good things about several people. Another well-known Stoic philosopher, Seneca, stated that he would not be embarrassed to quote a bad author if the idea was good. Even though Epicurus founded a competing school of philosophy, this can be seen in his essays and letters where he frequently quotes or cites Epicurus. They don't always agree, but that doesn't mean they can't learn from each other. Self-pride and what other people know. What happens if we don't want to learn from others and don't apply this? First, it makes our egos bigger, making us think we know everything and can do everything better than anyone else, and that we can't learn anything from them. Not only is this obviously false and disastrous for our future personal growth, but it also doesn't help in society. After all, humans are social animals, and having a big ego doesn't help there. We should assume that the person we are listening to knows something that we do not know, according to one of Jordan Peterson's 10 rules in his best-selling book, 12 Rules for Life. As it turns out, our knowledge and wisdom are not enough unless we are perfect, and our lives are perfect in every way. Why isn't our life perfect if we knew everything we need to know? Who are we to say that we are not perfect? Not really, though. Our lives aren't perfect, and there are always things we can do to make them better. To start, we can listen to others, or, like Marcus Aurelius, reflect on the good traits of others. After all, some knowledge is communicated through conversation, but other knowledge is communicated through observation and thought. Questions like, "What character traits does this person best represent?" can be posed here. Do they practice virtues consciously or unconsciously? How do they handle situations that are hard or annoying? Angry, experiencing setbacks, or facing other obstacles? This can be a teaching moment because the answers to these questions reveal how a person approaches life. We are aware that our knowledge, wisdom, and behavior all contain flaws and that we are not perfect. However, we can move in the right way by paying close attention, observing others, and learning from them. The worldly Stoic. Then, learning from others fits in nicely with the Stoic street. In fact, being global and a part of a whole is reflected in how we treat one another as human beings and how we build society. This is how the Stoics saw each person, as a bee in a group, as body parts of one body, or as branches on the same tree, are all examples of how they thought about this. They also didn't know any kind of fasting because of this. To become a better person, you don't have to cut yourself off from other people. Instead, you should improve society by becoming a better person. Stoics believe that the virtues they strive to cultivate should make the world a better place, and that the happiness they seek should be sustainable and geared toward real change and improvement for both themselves and others. Sometimes it's hard to think this way in a society where everyone is out for themselves. For many people, self-interest is still the most important thing. However, we are also slowly making progress toward a better society by seeing ourselves as part of a whole and by learning from the positive traits of others. Even if you wouldn't want to do it for the good of everyone else, it helps us in the short term. To go back to Marcus Aurelius, when you want to cheer yourself up, think of the good qualities of the people around you. For example, the energy of one, the modesty of another, the generosity of a third, and something else from yet others. For nothing is more gratifying than when the most faithful reflections of virtues manifest themselves in the character of our fellow men and, as far as possible, act in combination. Therefore, you must have ready examples of them. In the worst case, we can only use other people's examples and lessons for ourselves, as a guide or as a goal. In the best case, though, everyone learns from each other, and we all work together, like Stoics, like bees, to make the swarm better. Freedom for the active Stoic. Seneca is talking about Cato the Younger here. He demonstrated that a brave man can live in rebellion against fate and can die in rebellion against fate. A letter from Seneca to his friend Lucilius talks about how Cato refused to be a slave to fate. As Seneca often called it, Lady Fortuna. Seneca says that Cato is free because nothing that fate can give him leaves him feeling empty. Cato doesn't care if something is, in a sense, in the hands of fate. Some examples are the weather, other people's opinions, money, and the way living things are put together. Seneca also wrote about being a slave and doing what someone else wants just because they have something you want. The person who works just to make money is a good example. It doesn't matter if they are doing it out of necessity, due to circumstances, or out of greed. In this case, you're doing work you don't want to do because someone else has the money you want. This is also how Seneca talks about fate. Why shouldn't it be? But what does that really mean? What can we do to stop it? Why would we want to fight fate in the first place? Says Seneca, if you don't care about fate, you gain freedom. Let me show you what I mean. Only 3 customers were allowed in the store at a time due to corona measures, which I was standing at. It was at that moment that I saw a customer at the cash register telling the employee behind the cash register a story in great detail. Inside me, Anger welled up. This man shouldn't be on the same side as other people. I have to wait now. They left the store, and I went inside. Then another couple walked in. Then, of course, I was frustrated again, because there were now 4 people in the store. They should follow the rules, not break them. Seneca said that this makes no sense at all. Also, now that I think about it, I think it was silly of me to do that. The reason this is a good example is that fate had an influence on the situation, and I also let fate have an influence on me. The rules and measures, the quantity of customers, the behavior of the employees and so on were all decided by fate. To be able to enter the store as soon as possible was my desire. As you might imagine, these things ultimately depend on fate. That's all that was needed for the store to close, and there are many things that could slow down shopping. I should also say that the fact that I didn't change how I was acting makes this case less strong. I didn't just stop talking to people. What happened in this case was primarily about holding on to bad emotions. My emotions were, however, under the control of fate at the time. Because of fate, it is also possible for people to change their behavior or deeds. Take a look at people who turn to crime after experiencing one or more terrible events. That whole time, they may have been so against breaking the law. Stoic philosophy would have us believe that this is not necessary. Fate can do what it wants, but it can't make you give up your values or lose your peace of mind. I suggest reading John Seller's book, Lessons in Stoicism, if you're interested in learning more about how the Stoics thought about negative emotions. The difference between being startled by something and lingering in emotion is explained in it by what the Stoics called a pre-emotion and a after-emotion. In the end, what does it matter? Let's go back to Seneca and Cato. Freedom is saying no to everything that impulses, and all that you practice for yourself are things you should focus on. Epictetus also talks about avoiding becoming a slave to fate or others by determining what is really within your own reach and what is not. What do these men really want to say? They want to say something that Epictetus literally said once. Freedom is achieved by becoming master of yourself. In other words, you are free if you have complete control over what you say, do, and believe. You are not free if you allow other people, fate, or impulsivity to determine what you say, do, or think. Others' orders aren't the only thing they mean by this. They also mean annoying behavior from others. Epictetus says that when you become angry at the behavior of another person, you are giving them your mind. After all, by their behavior, they were able to determine the condition of your mind. The goal is to determine your own state of mind. In the past, when things got too busy around me, I would do a kind of meditation to stay calm. Imagine a beach with palm trees on the inside of my head. I could also imagine a stormy world on the other side. There is, of course, a wall between them that the rain can't get through. To keep yourself from seeing the outside world, this is more of a warning. This is a warning that you don't have to be affected by a heated argument going on around you. That's not to say it's simple, but the technique is definitely worth trying. Or to come up with your own technique to achieve the same outcome. I still occasionally imagine myself with some kind of curtain between me and things like insults. Then I see the insulting words going through the minds of those other people without coming at me, because those words don't change the person I am. They only told me what someone thinks of me. In other words, they remember what they said. Mark says that your soul is the most peaceful place you can go. Yes, he does mean a soul that is focused on what the Stoics say is most important. Not the best place to be is with a soul that is restless and full of dark thoughts. Stoics, on the other hand, give you tools to make your soul a better place. I suggest that you read through the Stoic reading list on this website to learn more about techniques to achieve freedom and peace of mind. In conclusion, Learn the absolute nature of how the world works through logical thinking and reasoning. You'll learn what fate decides and what you can do to determine your own future. Trust these natural rules and don't think about what they mean. You can't change them. No matter what you think about wet weather, it will still rain. Do what you can, regardless of your fate. This will give you freedom. If someone can take something away from you, it wasn't yours to begin with. Epictetus says that we have the power to change our opinions, choices, behaviors, and character. As it is sometimes portrayed in the media, we are not talking about the complete freedom of a godlike being here. We're talking about freedom that makes sense. This is a freedom that only humans have. We'll have to do something, though. It's not like we can flip a switch and be free right away. To be free, we will have to train. Self-discipline, understanding, and having a clear view of things are the keys. Do this. Ask yourself two things. Who can give me what I want? If what you want is a new car, you'll finally come to the conclusion that you can't always get it, but that it depends on fate. To begin with, the car has to exist. Money has to exist. There must be a way for you to make money to exist. Some kind of scheme must exist where you can trade money for things like cars. You need to have a way to keep your money safe, and so on. Seneca also claims that we already have everything we need in our possession because of this. Making sense. We can reason to understand what's important and what's not. Stoics, then. Does that mean you shouldn't want other things, like a car or a nice trip? You should be the one to give the answer. Are you interested in being as free as a human being can be? The Stoics therefore advise you to do this. You are free to say, "No, I don't want to be free," and you are also free to say, "The good idea of freedom makes no sense," but at least consider the side. Seneca recommends that we take in and understand the mind of truly honest people and then continue the search for truth and a good life. A good idea of a human being can remain in the capacity that it was conceived. It does not change. Ideas, principles are not subject to change. Moments of crisis are unavoidable in our society and can show themselves in a variety of ways, such as economic meltdowns, political unrest, and even pandemics. The time between these major events may change, but they do happen on a regular basis. There is no denying that crises affect our society with alarming frequency, despite the fact that each one is unpredictable and tends to end abruptly, like an unannounced explosion. A recent piece by Ryan Holiday called 10 Highlights gives a striking example of a virus spreading from east to west, causing panic among the populace, governments to tighten their borders, and travel restrictions. Events were postponed as a result, and the economy crashed. Isn't this statement a lot like the coronavirus we talk about today? Surprisingly, this case is not about COVID-19. Instead, it is about the Antonine Plague, which happened in 165 AD during the rule of Marcus Aurelius. This terrible sickness claimed the lives of millions of people around the world and lasted for as long as 15 years. Even Marcus Aurelius' adopted brother Lucius Verus, who was also a ruler, was not safe. As Mark Twain once said, history tends to repeat itself, though not always literally. Sometimes it does so in a poetic way. There are a lot of parallels between the Antonine Plague crisis and the current corona crisis. The same is true for economic crises, which tend to follow the same patterns. People's behavior and experiences are often eerily similar, even when the specifics and circumstances are different. Especially if this is the first time we have experienced a pandemic crisis, it is understandable to wonder how to behave as individuals during times of crisis. The realization that times of crisis are a recurring event and that 10 of them are similar may give us a wider context, but it also raises the question of what a Stoic does during a crisis. A Stoic should behave in a certain way. The answer to these questions seems easy at first glance, but it's challenging in practice. A Stoic doesn't behave very differently during a crisis than they do other times. Just because things change doesn't mean that our core beliefs and virtues have to too. This may sound simple, but it's actually quite hard to do. What it means is, still, we can concentrate on cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and justice in man. No matter what the circumstances are around us, we can still strive to be a good person. Without being overwhelmed by fear or worry, we can prepare to face what is on the table. The Stoic practice of seeing obstacles as chances to learn and grow can be followed. It is possible to keep our attention on the things we can control while letting go of the things we can't. When things are calm, this is just as true as when things are bad. In the midst of the chaos, we still have the freedom to determine how we behave, how we approach the crisis, and what kind of person we want to be. We need to hold on to these values and keep following them. A valuable concept to consider is amor fati, or embracing fate. Accepting that fate may have given us a bad hand right now can help us deal with it. We don't have to whine or do nothing. We can instead think about how to make the most of this time and give it value. Think about the kind of person you want to be. This is another part of Stoicism that can help you in tough times. Do we want to be people who let fear, panic, anger, and nervousness get the best of them? Or do we strive to handle these challenging situations with calmness, determination, and dignity? In his personal notes, Marcus Aurelius compares the person to a rock in the middle of roaring waves. The rock stays still amidst all the chaos. This is the kind of person who not only makes it through a crisis, but also comes out of it better. This is a great example of the power of Stoicism to help us deal with life's challenges. We will continue to face many unknowns as a result of the ongoing situation. The situation is still unknown, as is the length of time it will last, the severity of its effects on our daily lives, and the overall cost to the economy. Some things that might be on our minds are when the lockdown will end, and if we will still have our jobs in a few months. In addition, many of us are dealing with extra stress in our personal lives, whether it's the difficulty of balancing work and kids at home, missing visits from family and friends, or other issues. We do know that there isn't a full vaccine answer yet, and we don't know how the virus will continue to spread or if there will be new outbreaks after the lockdown. We also know that many people, both in the healthcare industry and elsewhere, are trying hard to combat the effects of the virus. For the most part, though, we are in a kind of transitional phase. We are neither fully here nor fully there, which causes a lot of stress, confusion, and insecurity. That being said, this doesn't mean we should be overcome by what's going on. We can try our best, help other people, and be a good person during this time if we want to. In the end, this is what it's all about. For those who want to approach the corona problem with a sense of amor fati or accepting fate, this can also serve as a powerful message. The Stoic art of living must be put into practice if we are to apply a practical philosophy. It's important to realize that we can't just become that person, even if we have a great idea of ourselves as that kind of person. As much as we want to, we can't always live up to our own quickly standards. Because of this, it is much better to see this situation as a chance to practice living. Does this imply that the present is simple? It might not, though, but it is obvious that it is preferable to use this obstacle, this crisis, to improve oneself as a person than to freak out or waste the present. So let's behave ourselves, remain calm, and demonstrate determination. Follow the official line. Let's help each other and ourselves. And I hope this will help us not only get through the crisis, but also come out of it better. Thank you for joining us on this enriching journey through our 2-hour guide to Stoicism. We hope you've discovered valuable insights and practical wisdom to enhance your daily life. Remember, embracing Stoicism is a continuous path filled with lifelong learning and self-discovery. If this guide has sparked your interest and you're eager to explore more, we invite you to subscribe to Stoic Evolution. Subscribing will keep you updated with our latest content, offering more insights into the profound world of Stoicism. But why stop there? Take your commitment to personal growth a step further by becoming a member of Stoic Evolution. As a member, you'll unlock exclusive access to a treasure trove of content, specially curated to deepen your understanding and application of Stoic principles. As part of our dedicated community, members receive weekly challenges that bring Stoic philosophy to life in practical, real-world situations. Additionally, you'll have the exclusive opportunity to join our weekly Q&A sessions, where we delve into your most pressing questions and explore Stoicism in greater depth together. Don't just watch the evolution, be a part of it. Subscribe for regular updates or join as a member for the full Stoic Evolution experience. Your journey towards personal mastery and wisdom awaits.